They fired me from the family business and called me a failure. 5 years later, I handed my sister a wedding card at her reception. Inside, proof that I'd built a $150 million company without them. By the end of this story, you'll see why that card destroyed everything they thought they knew about me. If you've ever been underestimated by the people who should have believed in you most, hit that subscribe button. This story is for you, and trust me, the ending is worth every second. My name is Emma Chen, and for 6 years, I was the invisible workhorse of Chen Marketing Group. Fresh out of college with a business degree and stars in my eyes, I thought working for the family company would be my dream come true. My parents had built it from nothing, a small marketing firm in downtown Chicago that serviced local businesses. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours, or so I thought. The reality was different. I'd arrive at 7 in the morning, leave at 9 at night. I handled the difficult clients, the ones who changed their minds every other day, the ones who paid late, the ones who demanded revisions until their campaigns were watered down to nothing. Meanwhile, my younger sister Olivia floated through the office like she was starring in her own reality show. 25 years old, stunning in that effortless way some people just are, and blessed with the kind of charisma that made people lean in when she spoke. My parents worshipped her. I remember this one particular Monday morning meeting. I'd spent 6 months developing a digital transformation campaign for our biggest client, a boutique hotel chain looking to rebrand. 6 months of market research, competitor analysis, focus groups, late nights building mock-ups. I presented it to my father, slides perfectly formatted, data visualized, ROI projections conservative but promising. He barely looked up from his coffee. "It's fine, Emma, but it lacks sophistication. These clients expect more polish, more refinement." I felt my throat tighten, but I nodded. "What specifically would you like me to change?" "Just make it better. You know what I mean." I didn't, but I went back to my desk and worked another 40 hours that week trying to decode what better meant. The following Monday, Olivia walked into the same meeting. She'd taken my exact campaign, I'd seen her looking through the files on my desk, and presented it with minor cosmetic changes. Different font, brighter colors, same strategy, same core ideas, same data. My father's face lit up like she'd just invented fire. "Now this," he said, actually standing up to look closer at her screen. "This is what I'm talking about. This is marketing. Olivia, you've really outdone yourself." My mother clutched her chest like she might cry from pride. Our girl, so talented. I sat there, hands folded in my lap, fingernails digging into my palms. Olivia caught my eye for half a second. I waited for her to say something, to mention that we'd collaborated, that the foundation was mine. Instead, she smiled and said, "Thanks, Dad. I'm glad you love it." That was the pattern. It had been the pattern since I'd started working there. I was paid $40,000 a year. Olivia made $65,000 for half the hours and a quarter of the output. When I asked my father about a raise, he said the company couldn't afford it right now. When Olivia asked for a new laptop, he bought her the latest MacBook Pro the next day. Family dinners were worse. My mother would spend entire meals asking Olivia about her dates, her friends, her spin class, her skincare routine. If she asked me anything at all, it was usually, "Emma, honey, why don't you take better care of yourself? You could be pretty like your sister if you tried." I tried to tell myself it didn't matter, that I was building experience, building character. That eventually they'd see my value. I was wrong. Everything changed the day Olivia came into the office wearing a diamond the size of a small planet. "I'm engaged," she squealed, practically bouncing on her heels. My mother burst into tears. My father pulled out champagne we apparently kept on hand for special occasions. I hugged Olivia because that's what you do, and I was happy for her, genuinely. She'd been dating Marcus Whitfield for 8 months, and he seemed like a good guy. Successful, kind, clearly devoted to her. What I didn't realize at the time was that Marcus wasn't just successful. He was the CEO of Whitfield Industries, a Fortune 500 manufacturing company with operations across North America. His family had old money, the kind that came with polo matches and charity galas and senators on speed dial. Over the next 2 weeks, my parents transformed. Suddenly, every conversation was about connections, about opportunities, about positioning our modest little firm to work with the right kind of clients. The third Monday after the engagement, my father called me into his office. I should have known something was wrong. He'd asked me to close the door. He never asked me to close the door. "Emma, sit down." His voice was strained, like he was about to deliver bad news about a terminal diagnosis. I sat, waited. He cleared his throat 3 times before speaking. "We need to make some changes to the company structure." "Okay, what kind of changes?" "With Olivia's engagement to Marcus, we have an opportunity to elevate our client base. The Whitfield family travels in certain circles, and we need to present the right image." Something cold settled in my stomach. "What does that mean?" "It means we need team members who fit the aesthetic we're going for. Young, polished, sophisticated. People who can schmooze at country clubs." I stared at him. "Dad, are you saying what I think you're saying?" He couldn't meet my eyes. "Emma, you're a hard worker. No one's questioning that. But you're not the face we need right now. We're letting you go." The words hit me like a physical blow. "You're firing me." "We're restructuring. It's not personal." "Not personal?" My voice cracked. "I'm your daughter. I've given this company 6 years of my life. I've worked weekends, holidays, missed birthdays and weddings and graduations for friends because I was here handling emergencies. And we appreciate that. But this is what's best for the family business." "I'm family." He finally looked at me then, and what I saw in his eyes was worse than anger. It was indifference. "Emma, don't make this harder than it needs to be. We'll give you 2 weeks severance and a reference letter." I felt like I was drowning. "Does Mom know about this?" "It was a joint decision." "And Olivia?" He shifted uncomfortably. "Olivia understands that sometimes sacrifices need to be made for the greater good." I stood up, my legs shaking. "Sacrifices? You mean me. I'm the sacrifice so she can have her perfect life." "Don't be dramatic. You'll find another job. This is a great opportunity for you to explore other options." I walked to my desk in a daze. My hands were numb as I packed my things, 6 years compressed into one cardboard box. A succulent that somehow hadn't died, a framed photo of me and my college roommate, the good stapler I'd bought with my own money because the office ones were garbage. Olivia appeared in my cubicle doorway. "Emma, Don't." My voice came out flat, dead. "Just don't. I didn't want this, but Dad said—" "You didn't want this, but you didn't stop it either." She bit her lip, her eyes welling up with tears. "You'll be okay. You're smart. You'll figure something out." I looked at her, my baby sister, the golden child, standing there in her designer blouse and her massive engagement ring, believing with her whole heart that she was being supportive. "You're right," I said quietly. "I will figure something out." I picked up my box and walked past her, past my parents' offices where they couldn't even be bothered to see me out, past the conference room where I'd presented dozens of campaigns that built this company. In my car, I sat for 15 minutes staring at the building. I wasn't crying. I was too shocked to cry. I just kept thinking about a notebook in my apartment, a thick, spiral-bound notebook where I'd recorded every single idea my father had rejected over the years. Marketing strategies, client acquisition tactics, automation tools, digital pivots. 147 ideas. I'd counted them once during a particularly bitter Sunday night. I pulled out my phone and typed a note to myself. "They fired me because I wasn't valuable enough. I'll show them what valuable actually looks like." Then I drove home to my tiny studio apartment and didn't speak to my family for 3 months. That first month was brutal. I lived off my meager savings and the severance pay that felt like hush money. I didn't tell anyone what happened, not my college friends who'd drifted away when I stopped having time for them, not my extended family who'd hear my parents' version anyway. I just existed in this weird limbo, ordering takeout I couldn't afford and staring at my laptop screen until 3 in the morning. But I wasn't idle. I was planning. Every rejection from my father had a pattern. He'd dismissed ideas that served small and medium-sized businesses because they weren't prestigious enough. He wanted luxury brands, high-end clients, the kind of accounts that got written up in Crane's Chicago business. The problem was, those clients had agencies already, big ones with creative directors and media buyers and expense accounts. Meanwhile, there were thousands of small businesses desperate for affordable marketing help. They couldn't afford the big agencies, but they needed more than just posting on Instagram whenever they remembered. They needed strategy, consistency, automation. What if I could give them that? I opened my rejection notebook and started mapping connections. Social media automation, content generation based on brand voice and industry trends, automated A/B testing for ad copy, customer segmentation tools, everything I'd pitched to my father that he'd dismissed as too niche or not sophisticated enough. The market was massive. According to the SBA data I found, there were 32 million small businesses in the United States. Even if only 5% needed marketing automation, that was 1.6 million potential customers. I started small. I taught myself Python through YouTube tutorials and online courses, sitting at my kitchen table until my back ached and my eyes burned. I built a crude prototype, a tool that could auto-generate social media content based on a few inputs about a business's industry, target audience, and brand voice. It was clunky. The interface looked like it was designed in 2003, but it worked. I reached out to 10 local businesses, a coffee shop, a yoga studio, a used bookstore, a pet groomer, an HVAC company, a boutique gym, a bakery, a vintage clothing store, a tax prep service, and a craft brewery. My pitch was simple. Let me automate your social media for free for 3 months. If it works, you can pay me $50 a month. If it doesn't, you owe me nothing. 8 of them said yes. I slept 4 hours a night for those 3 months. I refined the tool based on their feedback, fixed bugs, added features. I learned SQL to manage the data better. I studied marketing automation platforms like HubSpot and MailChimp to understand what worked and what didn't. At the end of 3 months, all 8 businesses wanted to keep using it. 7 referred me to other businesses. By month 6, I had 50 paying customers and $2,500 in monthly recurring revenue. It wasn't enough to live on, but it was proof of concept. That's when I met Sarah Martinez. I joined a local startup meetup group, mostly to remind myself that other humans existed, and I'd been convinced to pitch my tool during the open mic session. I was terrified. My hands shook so badly I could barely advance my slides, but I got through it, explaining the problem, the solution, the early traction. Afterwards, a woman in an expensive blazer approached me. She was probably 50, with silver streaks in her black hair and the kind of confident posture that said she'd spent decades in boardrooms. Emma Chen, she extended her hand. Sarah Martinez, I invest in marketing technology companies. My heart started pounding. Oh, hi. Thank you for listening to my pitch. That wasn't a pitch. That was you underselling what could be a billion-dollar solution. She pulled out a business card. You're solving a $10 billion problem for a market that's been completely ignored by the major players. Do you have time for coffee tomorrow? I had nothing but time. Yes, absolutely. The next day, at a Starbucks in the Loop, Sarah laid it out for me. She'd built and sold 2 marketing tech companies. She knew the space, knew the players, knew the market dynamics. She saw what I saw, a massive underserved market and a scrappy founder with domain expertise and a chip on her shoulder. I want to offer you $500,000 in seed funding, she said, stirring her Americano, in exchange for 20% equity. You keep full control of product direction. You use the money to hire engineers, build a real platform, and start scaling customer acquisition. I nearly choked on my latte. $500,000? You're worth it. But I need to know you're serious about building a real company, not a lifestyle business. Are you ready to go all in? I thought about my parents' faces when they fired me, about Olivia's apologetic smile that meant nothing, about my father saying I wasn't sophisticated enough. I'm ready. We shook hands and Vanguard Marketing AI was born. The next 18 months were a blur of 16-hour days, failed experiments, and small victories that felt like miracles. Sarah introduced me to 2 other angel investors who came in for smaller amounts. I hired 2 engineers fresh out of coding boot camps, brilliant kids who worked for equity because they believed in the vision. We built a real platform with a clean interface, robust automation, and integrations with Shopify, WordPress, and HubSpot. By the end of year 1, we had 50 paying customers and $30,000 in monthly recurring revenue. Year 2, 200 customers, $150,000 in MRR. Year 3, 500 customers, $400,000 in MRR. I wasn't living large. Every dollar went back into the product. I still lived in my studio apartment, still bought groceries from Aldi, still wore the same 4 rotation of business casual outfits. But my cap table was growing, and so was my confidence. Year 4, we raised a Series B. Valuation, $80 million. Suddenly, I was on podcasts in Forbes 30 Under 30, speaking at marketing conferences, and my family had no idea. I'd blocked their numbers after the first barrage of perfunctory "How are you" texts stopped coming. I stayed off Facebook and Instagram, not because I was hiding, but because I genuinely didn't care what they were doing. I was too busy building something that mattered. By year 5, we closed Series C, 15,000 customers across 50 countries. Annual recurring revenue, $45 million. Valuation, $150 million. And then, after 5 years of silence, I got an email. Subject line, "I'm getting married. I want you there." I stared at it for a full minute before opening it. "Emma, I know it's been a long time. I know things ended badly, but I'm getting married in 6 months, and I can't imagine walking down the aisle without my sister there. I'm sorry for how everything happened. I should have stood up for you. I didn't, and I've regretted it. Please come. Let's be family again. Love, Olivia." There was no mention of what I'd been doing, no curiosity about my life, just an assumption that I'd be sitting around waiting for an invitation back into their world. I closed the laptop and stared out my apartment window at the Chicago skyline. My therapist, yes, I had a therapist now, had been helping me process the family stuff. We'd talked about closure, about boundaries, about the difference between forgiveness and reconciliation. I didn't need to forgive them, but maybe I needed closure. I typed back, "I'll be there." Then I started planning my gift. The next 6 months passed in a strange parallel existence. I was closing our Series C, managing a team of 40 employees, speaking at TechCrunch Disrupt about the future of marketing automation. Meanwhile, I watched my sister's wedding planning unfold through the occasional email updates she sent. Venue selected, the Plaza Hotel in New York. Dress purchased, Vera Wang. Guest list finalized, 300 people. I was invited, but I was never asked about my life. Not once. Not a single "How have you been?" or "What are you up to these days?" It was like I'd been frozen in time for them. Still the struggling, unemployed daughter who'd been too unsophisticated for the family business. Perfect. I bought a simple but elegant dress. Navy blue, classic cut, nothing flashy. I wasn't trying to make a statement with my appearance. The statement would come from something else entirely. 2 weeks before the wedding, I sat at my dining room table with a blank card and a pen. I wrote and rewrote the message 7 times before I got it right. Not angry, not petty, just honest. The card went into a plain white envelope. On the outside, in my neatest handwriting, "For Olivia and Marcus." Inside the envelope, along with the card, I tucked my business card and a printed copy of the TechCrunch article announcing our Series C funding. The headline read, "Vanguard Marketing AI raises $50 million Series C at $150 million valuation, aims to democratize marketing automation for SMBs." The article included my photo and a quote, "CEO Emma Chen built Vanguard from the ground up after leaving her family's marketing firm. Her mission, prove that sophisticated marketing tools should be accessible to businesses of all sizes, not just Fortune 500 companies." I sealed the envelope and put it in my purse. The day of the wedding arrived with perfect June weather. Sunny, 75 degrees, low humidity. I took the train to New York, checked into a modest hotel in Midtown, and changed into my dress. Standing in front of the mirror, I barely recognized myself. Not because I looked different. I looked like me, just a more polished version, but something in my eyes had changed. 5 years ago, I'd left my parents' office broken and humiliated. Now I looked confident, calm, free. The Plaza Hotel was exactly as absurd as I'd imagined. Ice sculptures, crystal chandeliers, enough flowers to open a botanical garden, the kind of wedding that cost more than most people's houses. I arrived during cocktail hour, deliberately late enough to avoid the ceremony. I wasn't interested in watching Olivia walk down the aisle. I was here for closure, not sentiment. The moment I walked into the reception area, I saw her. My mother, holding court with a group of well-dressed women I didn't recognize. She was mid-laugh when she spotted me, and her face did this complicated thing where surprise, discomfort, and forced politeness all fought for dominance. "Emma!" She broke away from her group and approached me with her arms outstretched, like we were a normal family who hugged. "Oh, honey, you made it. You look different." Translation: "You don't look as bad as I expected." "Hi, Mom." I accepted the brief, awkward hug. "Congratulations." "Yes, isn't it wonderful? Olivia is just glowing, and Marcus, such a gentleman. His family is absolutely lovely. Did you know his father is on the board of 3 museums? And his mother does incredible philanthropic work." She didn't ask what I did, didn't ask where I was living or how I'd been. I smiled politely. "That's great." My father appeared next, immaculate in his tuxedo. He gave me a curt nod. "Emma, good to see you made it." His tone suggested I'd been late to a dentist appointment, not my sister's wedding after 5 years of estrangement. "Hi, Dad." "You're at table 24, near the back." He gestured vaguely toward the reception hall. "Dinner starts in 20 minutes. No hug, no warmth, just logistics. Table 24 was exactly where you'd expect, tucked in the back corner near the kitchen doors, with a view of other people's backs. I was seated with distant cousins I'd met maybe twice, all of whom were deep in conversation about people I didn't know. I sat down, placed my clutch purse, containing the envelope, on my lap, and observed. Olivia looked stunning in her Vera Wang gown, Marcus handsome and attentive beside her. They did look happy, genuinely happy. Some bitter part of me had hoped they wouldn't, but I couldn't deny it. The speeches started, maid of honor gushing about Olivia's kindness, best man roasting Marcus gently, and then my father stood up. When Olivia was born," he began, his voice thick with emotion, "I knew she was special. She's always made us proud, from her first steps to helping build our family business into what it is today. She has her mother's grace and my business sense." He raised his glass. "To Olivia and Marcus, may you build something beautiful together." I sat there, champagne glass untouched, and felt nothing. Not anger, not hurt. Just a strange, distant observation. He'd rewritten history so completely that he believed it. In his mind, Olivia had built the business. I'd never existed. After the father-daughter dance, after the cake cutting, as the party shifted into dancing and mingling, I stood up. My moment had come. The gift table was near the entrance, overflowing with wrapped boxes, crystal vases probably, and kitchen gadgets they'd never use. I walked over calmly, pulled the white envelope from my purse, and placed it carefully between 2 silver-wrapped presents. No one noticed. Everyone was watching Olivia and Marcus on the dance floor, lost in their bubble of happiness. I took one last look at the reception, at the family that had discarded me, at the sister who'd let it happen, at the parents who'd never seen my worth. Then I walked out. I didn't stay for the bouquet toss or the sparkler exit or whatever other Pinterest perfect moments they had planned. I got in a cab, went back to my hotel, changed into comfortable clothes, and ordered room service. My phone buzzed with a text from my team. "Series C wire hit the account. Congrats, boss." "You did it." I smiled and typed back. "We did it. Celebrate this week. You've earned it." The next morning, I took the train back to Chicago. I had a board meeting on Monday, a product launch on Wednesday, and a speaking engagement in San Francisco on Friday. I had work to do, a company to run, a life I'd built without them. And somewhere in New York, in a honeymoon suite at the Plaza, my sister was about to open a card that would change everything. I imagined the scene played out sometime around midnight, the reception winding down, guests filtering out with their party favors and champagne-drunk smiles. Olivia and Marcus, still in their wedding attire, would have retreated to their suite with my parents. A Chen family tradition, opening cards and gifts together before the couple left for their honeymoon. I wasn't there, obviously. But I know my family well enough to reconstruct it. My mother would have been the one sorting through the cards, reading the well wishes aloud while my father tallied checks in his mental ledger. Olivia, probably exhausted from hours of smiling and dancing, would have been half listening while Marcus rubbed her feet. Then, Mom would have picked up my envelope. Plain white, no embellishment. Just neat handwriting. For Olivia and Marcus. "Oh, this one's from Emma," she'd have said, probably with that particular tone, surprised I'd actually given a gift at all. Olivia would have perked up. What did she write? I can see my mother opening it, pulling out the card, beginning to read aloud. "Dear Olivia and Marcus, congratulations on your marriage. May you build something beautiful together." Nice enough start. Mom would have relaxed slightly. 5 years ago, I was told I wasn't good enough for our family business. That rejection became the best gift I ever received. Her voice would have faltered there. Dad would have looked up from whatever gift box he'd been examining. I built Vanguard Marketing AI from the ground up, the company that just closed Series C funding at a $150 million valuation last month. Mom would have stopped reading. Just stopped, staring at the words like they were written in a foreign language. "What?" my father would have said. "What does it say?" Olivia would have taken the card from Mom's hand, her eyes scanning faster now. "We serve 15,000 businesses across 50 countries. Every idea you saw me work on, every late night I spent at the office that no one acknowledged, every rejected proposal in Dad's filing cabinet, they all became the foundation of something you never thought I could achieve." Her voice would have gotten quieter as she continued. "This isn't about revenge. It's about showing you that your validation was never necessary for my success. I wish you both genuine happiness. Emma." Then she'd have seen the business card, simple design, premium cardstock. Emma Chen, CEO and founder, Vanguard Marketing AI. And the TechCrunch article printed on regular paper but official-looking enough. The headline, the photo of me, professional headshot, confident smile, looking nothing like the defeated daughter who'd packed up her desk 5 years ago. "This can't be real," my mother would have whispered, because that's what people say when their entire understanding of reality shifts. My father would have grabbed the article from Olivia's hand. I imagine him reading it once quickly, then again slowly, his face draining of color. Then, pulling out his phone with shaking hands, typing Vanguard Marketing AI into Google. The results would have flooded his screen. Our website, press releases, my Forbes 30 Under 30 feature from 2 years ago, a podcast interview I did with Y Combinator, a video of me speaking at TechCrunch Disrupt about democratizing marketing automation. "Our Emma?" Mom would have said. "How is this possible?" Marcus, the outsider in this family drama, would have leaned over to look at the article, and then he'd have said the thing that made it all real. "Wait, Vanguard Marketing AI? Our marketing team uses that platform." Everyone would have turned to look at him. "They implemented it last year," he'd continue, oblivious to the bomb he was dropping. "It's one of the fastest-growing marketing tech companies in North America. Cut our campaign development time by 60%. Our CMO raves about it." He'd look at the card again, then at my parents. "Your daughter built this?" The silence would have been deafening. Olivia would have been the first to break, not with anger, but with something worse. Guilt that had been festering for 5 years, suddenly given permission to surface. "I never defended her," she'd whisper, tears starting to streak her mascara. "When Dad said she had to go, I let it happen. I told myself it wasn't my fault, that you were making a business decision, but I knew it was wrong." Mom would have tried to touch her shoulder. "Sweetheart, you couldn't have—" "Yes, I could have," Olivia's voice would crack. "She was my sister. She raised me after Dad worked late every night. She helped me with my homework, drove me to dance practice, lent me money when I wanted to go on spring break. And when you fired her, I said nothing." My father would have been staring at his phone, scrolling through article after article. His face would show something I'd never seen before, the dawning realization that he'd made a catastrophic miscalculation. "The dates," he'd mutter. "She founded this company 6 months after we let her go. She's been building this for 5 years." "Well, we didn't even call to check on her," Mom would add, her voice small. Marcus, still trying to process, would say, "I don't understand. Why didn't you know about this? She's been in major publications. She spoke at Web Summit last year." Because they'd never looked, never wondered, never cared enough to Google my name. That's the part that would hurt them most. Not that I'd succeeded, but that they'd been so indifferent they hadn't even noticed. The next morning was a Sunday. I was in my apartment in Chicago drinking coffee and reviewing Q3 projections when my phone started lighting up. 7:30 a.m. Dad. 3 missed calls in a row. 8:15 a.m. Mom. 5 missed calls, 2 voicemails. 9 a.m. Olivia. A text that just said, "Please call me, we need to talk." 10:30 a.m. Dad again. This time a text, "Emma, we need to discuss this." I let them sit. I had a video call with our European team at 11. They were launching our platform in German and French, and I needed to review the localization. Business came first. At noon, I finally listened to my father's voicemail. His voice was strained, careful. "Emma, it's your father. I saw the article. I didn't know you had... we should talk about this. There might be opportunities for collaboration between our companies. The Whitfield connection opens a lot of doors, and if we could position Vanguard alongside our boutique services..." "Call me back." I played it twice, analyzing his tone like I was dissecting a competitor's marketing strategy. There was no apology in it, no acknowledgement of wrongdoing, just an immediate pivot to how my success could benefit him. Classic. Mom's voicemail was more emotional but equally self-serving. "Emma, honey, we had no idea you were doing so well. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. Why didn't you tell us? We could have helped. We could have... Please call us. We're family. We should be celebrating this together." The revisionist history was already beginning. In her mind, my silence was the problem, not their abandonment. I deleted both voicemails. Then I opened a text message to our family group chat, the one I'd muted 5 years ago, but never left. Mom, Dad, Olivia, me. The last message in it was from 3 days after I'd been fired. Mom sending a photo of Olivia's engagement ring with the caption, "So blessed." I typed carefully, "I'm not interested in collaborating, reconnecting, or rehashing the past. I built my life without you, and it's better that way. Please respect my boundary. I wish you all well." I hit send, then turned off my phone completely. I had a board meeting to prep for, and I needed focus. The weeks that followed were illuminating in the way that distance provides clarity. I learned things through the grapevine. The startup community in Chicago is small, and people talk. Someone who knew my parents mentioned that my father had spent an entire afternoon Googling my name, finding every article, every interview, every speaking engagement. He'd discovered my Forbes 30 Under 30 feature from 2 years prior, my appearance on the How I Built This podcast, my keynote at South by Southwest. 5 years of success he'd missed because he'd never bothered to check. Apparently, he'd tried to frame it to his business associates as pride. "My daughter, the tech CEO," he'd say at networking events, as if he'd been supportive all along. As if he hadn't looked me in the eye and told me I wasn't sophisticated enough for his world. My mother was worse in her own way. She'd called my college roommate, someone I hadn't spoken to in years, trying to get my new phone number. When that didn't work, she'd tried LinkedIn. I'd blocked her within an hour of the request appearing. But it was what happened to their business that interested me most. Chen Marketing Group had stagnated. In the 5 years since I'd left, they'd actually lost clients. The boutique hotel chain I'd spent 6 months developing a campaign for, they'd taken their business to a larger agency after my father failed to deliver results. 3 other major clients had done the same. The Whitfield connection they'd sacrificed me for hadn't materialized into anything substantial. Marcus's family was polite, but not interested in working with a small, struggling marketing firm. They had relationships with major agencies in New York and Los Angeles. My father had bet everything on prestige and lost. Meanwhile, Vanguard Marketing AI was thriving. By the end of that year, our valuation had increased to $200 million. We'd expanded into the European market, launched a mobile app, and partnered with Salesforce for integration. I was speaking at conferences, mentoring young entrepreneurs, building the exact kind of life I'd dreamed of. The irony wasn't lost on me. The ideas my father had rejected as not sophisticated enough had built something far more valuable than his firm would ever be. 6 months after the wedding, a letter arrived at my office, hand-delivered by courier, addressed to me personally. I recognized Olivia's handwriting on the envelope. I almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity won. The letter was 6 pages, handwritten on expensive stationery. Olivia's wedding gift, probably. I skimmed it first, then read it properly. She didn't ask for forgiveness. That was smart. She knew me well enough to know that would have made me throw it away immediately. Instead, she acknowledged, really acknowledged. "I was 25 and stupid and scared," she wrote. "When Dad said you had to leave, I knew it was wrong. I knew it was cruel, but I told myself it wasn't my decision to make, that I was just caught in the middle. The truth is, I was a coward. I chose my comfort over your dignity." She detailed specific memories, times I'd sacrificed for her, defended her, made her life easier, times she'd taken my work and let others think it was hers, times she'd stayed silent when she should have spoken up. "I don't expect you to respond to this," the letter concluded. "I don't expect you to forgive me or want a relationship. I just needed you to know that I see what we did to you. What I did to you. I'm sorry, not because you're successful now. You deserved better from us regardless of what you accomplished. But because you're my sister and I failed you when you needed me most. I hope you build an incredible life. You've already started. I'm genuinely proud of you, even though I have no right to be." I read it twice, then folded it carefully and put it in my desk drawer. I didn't throw it away, but I didn't respond either. Some wounds heal, some just scar over. A year after the wedding, 5 years and some change since I'd walked out of Chen Marketing Group, I got a notification from my assistant. Adobe wanted to buy Vanguard Marketing AI. The offer was staggering. $400 million. I would stay on as CEO with full autonomy over product direction. They wanted the platform, the team, the brand, but mostly they wanted the market position we'd built. We served a segment they'd never been able to crack, and they were willing to pay premium prices for that access. My ownership was 70% after dilution from funding rounds. Even after taxes, I'd walk away with roughly $180 million in personal net worth. I was 33 years old. We closed the deal in November. The press release went out on a Tuesday morning. By Tuesday afternoon, my phone, which I'd finally turned back on for business purposes, had 17 missed calls from my parents' number. I didn't call back. Instead, I did something I'd been putting off. I hired a family therapist, not to reconcile with my parents, but to process what had happened and decide what healthy boundaries looked like going forward. Dr. Reeves was a specialist in family estrangement. She'd seen hundreds of cases like mine, adult children cut off by families who undervalued them, only to become successful and face pressure to reconnect. "The question isn't whether they deserve forgiveness," she told me in our 3rd session. "The question is what you need to be at peace." I thought about that for weeks. What I needed wasn't an apology. Apologies are easy and meaningless without changed behavior. What I needed was freedom from the hope that they'd ever truly see me. That hope was the thing that had hurt most. Not the initial rejection, but the years I'd spent trying to earn their approval, believing that if I just worked harder, delivered better results, proved my worth, they'd finally recognize me. They never would have, not because I was lacking, but because they'd already decided who I was in their story. The disappointing daughter, the one who didn't quite measure up. I'd spent 5 years proving them wrong, and I'd succeeded beyond anything they could have imagined. But the victory felt hollow, because I'd realized something crucial. I didn't need them to admit they were wrong. I just needed to stop caring whether they did. So I made a decision. I unblocked their numbers and sent a single email to the family group chat. "I'm willing to have a cordial but distant relationship. Holiday cards, birthday wishes, polite conversation at unavoidable family events. But I'm not interested in being close. I don't trust you with that. This isn't about punishment, it's about protection. I hope you can respect that. My mother responded within minutes, a long message about healing and second chances and family bonds. I didn't read past the first paragraph. My father sent a shorter message. We made mistakes. We'd like to make amends. I responded, I appreciate that, but amends require changed behavior over time, not words. If that happens, maybe things will be different in a few years. For now, this is where I'm at. Olivia was the only one who responded appropriately. I understand. Thank you for being willing to stay in touch at all. That's more than we deserve. Christmas that year was the first time I'd seen them in person since the wedding. Olivia hosted at her and Marcus's new house in Evanston, a beautiful Victorian they'd renovated. My parents were there, along with Marcus's parents and a few other relatives. I arrived exactly on time and left exactly 2 hours later. I was polite, cordial, even warm at times. I complimented the house, asked appropriate questions, laughed at appropriate moments. But when my father tried to pull me aside to talk business, I politely declined. I don't mix family and business, Dad. I'm sure you understand. His face fell, but he nodded. When my mother tried to get me to stay longer, I hugged her briefly and said, I have plans tonight. But thank you for having me. I didn't have plans. I went home to my apartment. I had finally upgraded to a 2-bedroom in a high-rise with lake views and ordered Thai food and watched a movie with my boyfriend, Eric. We'd been dating for 8 months. He was a software engineer at a healthcare startup, brilliant and kind and completely unimpressed by my net worth. He liked me for me, which was refreshing after years of people treating me differently once they learned about Vanguard's success. How was it? He asked, passing me pad thai from the takeout container. Fine. Exactly as awkward as expected, but fine. Your dad try to pitch you on a partnership again? I laughed. Of course. I shut it down, politely but firmly. Eric nodded. He'd heard the whole story by this point, including the wedding card reveal. His take on it was characteristically straightforward. They made their choice. You made yours. Neither of you can unmake the past, so all you can control is how you move forward. He was right. Moving forward looked like this. I ran Adobe's marketing automation division with full autonomy. I mentored young women in tech, especially those from families that didn't support their ambitions. I spoke at conferences about resilience and the myth of needing family approval to succeed. I started a scholarship fund for first-generation college students pursuing business degrees, $5,000 per student per year, renewable for 4 years. The first year, we funded 20 students. By year 3, we were funding 100. I bought a house in Oak Park, not a mansion, just a comfortable 3-bedroom craftsman with a yard and a front porch. I adopted a rescue dog, a mutt named Biscuit, who had separation anxiety and needed someone patient. I traveled. I took cooking classes. I went to therapy regularly. I built a life that felt like mine, not a reaction to theirs. And yes, I saw my family occasionally. Birthdays, holidays, major life events. When Olivia had her first baby, a daughter named Sophie, I visited the hospital and held my niece and felt genuine happiness for my sister. But we weren't close, probably never would be. And I was okay with that. 2 years after the Adobe acquisition, I was invited to speak at a Women in Tech conference in Boston. 2,000 attendees, mostly female founders and executives at various stages of their careers. The conference organizer asked me to talk about overcoming obstacles. I'd given versions of this talk before, usually focusing on market challenges or fundraising difficulties. This time, I decided to be honest. I walked onto the stage in a navy pantsuit, smiled at the sea of faces, and began. People ask me all the time, what was your biggest challenge building Vanguard Marketing AI? I paused for effect. The honest answer? It wasn't the technology. It wasn't the fundraising. It wasn't the competition from bigger, better-funded companies. It was proving to myself that I didn't need validation from people who would never give it. The room was silent, attentive. 5 years before I founded Vanguard, I was fired from my family's marketing company. My own parents told me I wasn't sophisticated enough, that I didn't fit the image they wanted to project. They chose my sister's new connections over their own daughter's contributions. I saw some heads nodding, people related. I could stand here and tell you that I built a $150 million company to prove them wrong. That would make a good story, but it wouldn't be completely true. I walked across the stage, gathering my thoughts. The truth is, I built it to prove something to myself, that my value wasn't determined by their perception. That rejection from people I loved didn't mean I was unworthy. It meant they weren't equipped to see my worth. More nodding. Someone in the third row was wiping tears. Some of you in this room are dealing with families that don't understand what you're building, partners who think you should take the safe corporate job, parents who ask when you're going to get a real career, friends who stopped believing in you after the third pivot. I stopped center stage. Here's what I learned. Their blindness to your value doesn't decrease your worth. It just means they're not equipped to see it. And that's okay. You don't need their permission. You don't need their approval. You just need your own belief and the willingness to do the work. I paused, making eye contact with different sections of the audience. Build anyway, grow anyway, succeed anyway, not to prove them wrong, but to prove yourself right. The applause started before I'd finished the last sentence. People stood. The ovation lasted almost 2 minutes. Afterwards, I stood in the hallway doing the obligatory networking, shaking hands, exchanging business cards. A young woman in her 20s approached me, her eyes red. "Thank you," she said. "My parents wanted me to be a doctor. They told me starting a company was a waste of my education. I've been carrying that for 3 years, feeling like I failed them." "Did you fail them?" I asked. "Or did they fail to see you clearly?" She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for years. "The second one." "Then that's their loss, not your failure." She hugged me, breaking typical conference protocol, and whispered, "I needed to hear that." As she walked away, I noticed someone standing near the back of the hallway. Olivia. My sister was dressed professionally, looking older than I remembered but still beautiful. She'd flown to Boston for this. We stared at each other for a long moment. Then she walked over, slowly, like she was approaching something fragile. "I didn't know you'd be here," I said. "I saw you were speaking. I bought a ticket this morning and flew out." She clutched her conference lanyard. "I needed to hear what you'd say." "And?" "And you're right, about all of it." Her voice cracked. "We failed to see you clearly, and that was our loss." I didn't respond immediately. Dr. Reeves had warned me about moments like this, when family members finally acknowledge the truth and you have to decide what to do with that acknowledgement. "I appreciate you saying that," I said finally. "I really do. Hey, is there any chance we can, I don't know, start over?" I shook my head gently. "We can't start over. Too much happened. But maybe we can start somewhere new. Slow, boundaried, real." Olivia nodded, tears streaming. "I'll take that." We didn't hug, but we did walk to a quiet corner and talk for 30 minutes. Really talk, for the first time in years. She told me about motherhood, about therapy she'd started to process her role in family dynamics, about marriage counseling she and Marcus had done to address her people-pleasing tendencies. I told her about Eric, about my work at Adobe, about the scholarship fund. When we parted ways, we exchanged a genuine smile. Not forgiveness exactly, but something softer, something like the beginning of healing. 5 years ago, they'd fired me because I wasn't valuable enough. Today, I was free. Free from needing their approval. Free from defining myself by their limitations. Free to build a life that was authentically mine. I'd walked into that wedding reception with a card designed to show them what they'd lost. I'd walked out having shown myself what I'd gained. Not just wealth or success, but something more valuable. The understanding that I'd always been enough. They'd just never been equipped to see it. And honestly, that was the best gift they ever gave me. The gift of proving to myself that I didn't need them to know my worth for it to be real. I was enough. I'd always been enough. And I'd built a life that finally reflected that truth.